Hey guys, how's it going? It's Fred again, doing what I do, building cannonball run cars in record time to set records across the USA. Today, we're going to see the video about the Cannonball Run Ambulance, a curse that stood for 43 years. Billy and I decided in the beginning of 2022, we were going to break that curse. And not only were we going to do it, we were going to do it for the same or less money than it cost them in 1979. We've got all of our videos, all of our pictures together from the trip leaving Oklahoma to Connecticut to New York, all the way to Los Angeles, and back here home in Oklahoma. I hope you guys like the video. Give us a like, share, and subscribe, and follow along. Let us know what you think in the comments. Look forward to hearing from you. And if you want one of these neat t-shirts, probably I can get you one. Hope you enjoy.
The first thing we needed to do was find a van. I located this van in Kansas on Marketplace and was able to negotiate a fair price. It was a really cool van. It was all shagged out on the inside, ran, started right up, had new tires on it, and we're able to drive it right on the trailer. Loaded it up, took it back to Oklahoma, and that's where we started tearing it apart and seeing what we needed to do to get this thing going. When I say get this thing going, we really had to survey what needed to be updated and upgraded in order to make the trip across the USA. So Billy ripped the wheels off of it and started assessing the brake system. Took all the rotors off, got the rotors turned, new calipers, brake hoses, brake pads, the necessary things that might fail on a trip from New York to Los Angeles. Put some new shocks on it, some new U-joints, and we definitely needed to put an aluminum radiator to keep it cool, as well as sent the transmission out to be rebuilt. But the most important part was fixing the door on the side. We needed to have what resembled a sliding door, so we sourced a van in Hallett, Oklahoma, where we could get the parts we needed to fix or repair what we didn't have already, which is very crucial when you're doing a build to have enough parts around to assemble the things you don't have. So with my cat's help, I cut the door and fitted it to the frame, got it all set in there, and then we were ready to see if we could make it open.
So most people build sliding doors, but we built a flip-up door for the Cannonball Ambulance. How cool is that?
Once the door was done, we got the van back on its new wheels and tires and took it out to get some measurements for the lettering. These are the photos we took before we painted the van, stripped everything out, made sure everything ran good, and you know what? I think I'll take it for a test drive, lights or no lights. Me and the dogs, we're going to hop in the van and we're going to take it for a ride up to Oilton. Gus enjoyed the fact that I hadn't put the side window in yet, but all in all, the van didn't go too bad. The tires were really too small for what we needed in order to make the speeds we wanted on the run. So we took the van back, I unloaded the dogs, we brought the van in, and Billy started the bodywork. There really wasn't a lot of rust on the van. We did have to patch a few holes. Being from Kansas, there is a little bit of rust in that area. The van, all in all, was in pretty good shape. So we started sanding on it and got ready to do some paint. We masked the van off and started getting ready to put the primer to the van. Now, one of the issues we had is we only had a small compressor. So, unfortunately, I had to stop a lot and restart in order for the air to build up. But hey, that's part of building stuff in your garage. I just wanted to show people you can actually do this in your home garage without having to have a bunch of fancy tools. Here I'm blocking and sanding out the center stripe on it, which we're going to paint white first before we lay the orange down. No, I'm not a painter and I'm not a body man, but I can paint and do body work if I have to. The Cannonball Ambulance was a must. Paying to have the body work and paint done wasn't an option. We wanted to get this build done in 30 days. Oftentimes, a paint job like this could cost anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 with body work. We didn't have that sort of time. 30 days was lurking, we had to get the white paint on, and then we had to start prepping to get the dreaded orange paint. A lot of people don't realize when painting a van, we call it a lot of real estate, meaning there's a lot of area to cover and a little time. Things start drying on you, and blending them together as you go can become a very, very big issue when it comes to a final product. So we got it taped off, and we were ready to finally start putting the orange paint on the ambulance. Surprise, no PPG or DuPont products here. We went to our local Atwoods where we found 2 gallons of paint, 1 gallon of safety orange and 1 gallon of base white. Took it back to the house, got it all stirred up, and started laying it down on the van. The paint was finally on. Billy started taking some pictures, and we started adding the chrome, the grille, and as you can see, we put the side window that came from the rear door of our parts van that we sourced earlier. The assembly process of the accessories is probably the most rewarding part of the build. Putting the secondary gas door in, sourcing the lights, getting everything mounted. We didn't have the true mounts for the lights, so I had to make them. I brought up pictures on YouTube and different areas on the internet so I could try to make the brackets identical to what was on there. I actually got lucky and found some new old stock Sportsman emblems for the van. And now it was time to letter it. Thanks to my friends back home in Maine from You Name It, we were able to get all the accurate letters made to the correct size. Next was sourcing the lights. The Federal Markel lights were kind of tough to find, but with my help from Wayne Prater, we got enough parts and pieces to build some that would fit the van and represent them accurately as they were in 1979. As you can see, this was quite a process to get all the lettering on and get it accurate. We also had to make the mirrors for both sides, which were a chore themselves. We were able to build them out of some of the mirrors I had at my shop. Everything was painted under the hood, the grille was redone. We were getting ready to back the truck out of the shop for the first time. Here we go. Finally coming out of the shop. You want to come my way a little bit, Billy? Looking good. As you can see, we had to take the lights off so we could get the van out of the shop. We just reassembled them outside and we got ourselves ready to go to Connecticut. Unfortunately, on the way over to Billy's house, we realized the rebuilt transmission was not going to make it. So we headed back over to my shop, took the transmission out, put the old transmission back in, changed all the fluids, and headed to Connecticut. The trip did not go without issues. The first issue we had was the gas gauge was inaccurate, and we ran out of gas just shortly after we had left in Missouri. Misery, for a reason. We got gassed up by the AAA. An hour later, we were back on the road. Fortunately for us, that was the only issue we had on the way to Connecticut. Billy drove a bit, and I drove a bit. We took a bit more time at our fuel stops, making sure the gauge was accurate and we could get a good gauge of how many miles we could get before we had to refuel, filling up the big tank and the regular tank in the van at each interval. Before you know it, we were cruising along and we had arrived in Darien, Connecticut. The big surprise was my parents rode down with my brother to send Billy and I off in the morning. So, with a long day behind us, my parents, my brother, and I headed over to the steakhouse with Billy to get something to eat. The next morning, we were up and at it. We were headed to the Red Ball Garage in New York City. Billy did a little sightseeing. We got a few photos in before we got directly to the garage, and then all of a sudden, we were there. My parents, my brother, Billy, we all took turns with photos in front of the ambulance. Then it was time to go. We got the registration stamped as I always do, put a few stickers on the window. Then we were hopping in the van and headed across the USA. Billy grabbed a few more photos. Before you knew it, we were out on the open road. As you can see, we added the tank from Kilroy in the Cobra for an extra 55 gallons. And somewhere in Missouri, we managed to meet up with these guys from Get Out and Drive podcast. They asked Billy and I if we'd like to give them a shout out on the run. So we did.
This is Fred Ashmore. I'm currently running the Transcon Medivac Ambulance from the Cannonball movie, New York to Los Angeles. Be sure to listen to the Get Out and Drive podcast to learn more about my Cannonball Run history.
What does Get Out and Drive mean to you?
Let us know by leaving a message on our listener hotline. Just go to getoutanddrive.com, scroll to the bottom of the page, and click the listener hotline button.
As the sun came up, we knew there were a lot more miles ahead of us. We were tired and weary, but determined to make it to Los Angeles. We picked the miles up, we put a lot of miles down. We smashed a lot of bugs on the windshield, and before we knew it, the sun was going down and we were headed into LA. Cutting off almost 11 minutes in LA traffic, we found ourselves at the Portofino. We had done it. Redondo Beach, Los Angeles. The curse of the 1979 Cannonball Ambulance had been broken. 39 hours and 18 minutes. The 43-year curse was over, and we were ready for bed. The next morning, we got up and celebrated with a great big breakfast. Billy celebrated with a few more photos. Then we headed outside to get the traditional photos that are taken at the Portofino. Fortunately, we were able to meet up with a few cannonballers who had just made a run themselves, and they helped us take the photo, the most famous one of all, the Brock Yates Dan Gurney photo. Then we realized the van needed some maintenance. So we headed over to the local O'Reilly's Auto Parts, and we started going back through the van so we could get it ready to head back to Oklahoma. Check the wheel bearings, wash all the bugs off the window, change the oil, change the transmission fluid, and then back to the Portofino to meet up for a podcast and to take some really cool pictures of the van with some of the speed limit signs from the other runs, and off to Southern California where we'd see the dinosaurs. The dinosaurs are where the van ended its journey in 1979 during the race. Breaking down, the van was loaded onto a flatbed and towed to the finish line. Up until this point, that was the furthest the 79 Cannonball Ambulance had ever made it across the USA. So we took a few photos, grabbed some grub, then we parked it for the night, got up the next morning, and met up with our good buddy, Jason Hendricks. Billy and I's favorite part of the trip was getting something good to eat, hanging out with good friends from the Cannonball Memorial Run, and then we were off to Oklahoma. Billy's favorite place on earth, Lake Havasu. We gassed up the tank a few more times, and Billy steered it east. We had plenty of candid photos along the way. We were always trying to get a picture of each other napping, when in realistics, just a few pictures here, neither one of us slept very much. We just took advantage of each other when we could to have some laughs and keep it kind of interesting on the ride. And just like that, the whole thing came to an end. We pulled back into Oklahoma. Billy and I shook each other's hands, and we were done. The sun may have set on the adventure, but we became lifelong friends. We had broke a curse that stood for 43 years for less money than they did in 1979.